Good morning, friends. It is Thursday, the 21st of August 2025. You are watching Morning Brew on Politics Social with me, Graham Hughes. Hello and welcome, and a big shout out to everyone watching and everyone in the chat. If you're watching and you would like to join the chat, all you need to do is hit the subscribe button, and in doing so, you will be able to join Ivan and Lemon Twist and Diz and Viper Scott, Lost Missionary, L, Pygmalion, Saz, and many others, One Angry Pagan, in the chat. You'll be able to join them in the chat. And just be respectful, be kind, or we'll kick you off. Don't make us mute you and boot you. Today we're going to talk about GCSEs. I'm not going to be talking about anything going on across the pond for a change, thank God. I'm going to be talking about GCSEs and exams in general, and just the way that we do things in the United Kingdom, which I don't know if it's the best way of doing things, I've got to say. Today, hundreds of thousands of teenagers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland received their GCSEs. In England, they're still using this 9-to-1 numerical grading system, which was introduced by the privately educated twat Michael Gove back in 2014, under the direction of other privately educated twat Dominic Cummings, who rose to notoriety a couple of years later by telling all the plebs that all their problems in life were caused by the European Union, and that we should definitely leave the European Union because, I don't know, it gave us the right to go and live and work anywhere in Europe. And people like Gove and people like Cummings lives in a fucking castle. He doesn't want you to go and live and work anywhere in Europe. He wanted to take that from you, and he did, along with his other privately educated mates like Farage and Wigmore and Banks and Tice and Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson. It's funny how they all went to private school, isn't it? Anyway, let's talk about schooling and how a clique of privately educated, pompous twats screwed over an entire generation of kids with this ridiculous new system they brought in, instead of A's, which are like universally regarded as the best way to give people grades, and more importantly, because that's sort of cosmetic in a way, it's kind of annoying, but whatever. The main problem is they moved away from coursework and over to exams. So GCSE became a memory test. So if you're good at remembering stuff, you'll do well. If you're not great at remembering stuff, you won't do so well. So, pass rates have been falling in GCSEs for 3 years running now, showing the system is not helping students succeed. The system set up by Michael Gove, who went to private school. And don't forget, in private schools, you don't have to follow the national curriculum. You don't need to do GCSEs. You can do baccalaureates. You can do other stuff. You can do, so you can just have a little meeting in the back room to allow you to get into Oxford, or like that little man, what's his name, Toby Young did. Just get Daddy to make a phone call. Don't worry about not getting the grades. Just get Daddy to make a phone call to Oxford and say, hey, I think my little Toby should get in. And they're like, oh yes, sir. No, sir. 3 bags full, sir. Absolutely. We wouldn't want little Toby not to go to one of the most prestige universities in the world, because he is, after all, the son of someone who can call up that university and demand. Imagine if you could call up Manchester United and demand that your kid be on the team. Imagine that world. That's the world that these posh, pompous pricks want to create. And they're doing quite well with it. So Wales and Northern Ireland have kept the A-star to U letter system, which makes the lettering system and the number system kind of, inconsistent across the UK and confusing for most people. And this is a moment of hope and dread for students, building up to 8 o'clock this morning when the exam results were opened. And for some, today's a success. For others, it's a crushing disappointment, baked in by design to make them feel bad and not get ideas above their station. Because there's a lot of ideology that goes into structuring education. And if you are the type of person who benefited from an elite education and you work in an elite political party full of elites that all live in castles and swan about smoking cigars on fucking yachts, you're going to have a certain mindset. And the mindset is this: you don't want the plebs doing too well, because if they do well, they'll take things from you. If you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. Oh, my light has gone off. Oh, I'm still bright enough, aren't I? Why did my light go off? It's plugged in and everything. That's sad. I'm just going to see if I can fix this. No, I can't. Right. It's okay. It's okay. I'm just a bit not as well lit as I was. It's funny, if I change the screen a little bit, you can see I'm looking at a more whiter screen there. Lights my face up. Maybe I should just use that. So yeah, let's talk about how Gove and Cummings, privately educated arseholes, broke the GCSE system. So in 2014, they brought in reforms. Michael Gove was then Education Secretary. He launched the overhaul, egged on by Dominic Cummings, who was his SPAD, his special advisor. Coursework was largely abolished. There was a modular assessments were scrapped in favour of all or nothing exams after 2 years. No pressure, kids. This is the pressure we're putting on 16-year-olds. Grades were shifted from letters A star to G, and then U, which is unclassified, to unmarked or something. I don't know. U's a weird one. To 9 to 1, and they made the content harder, adding in more Shakespeare, because you need that to get on in life, don't you? More British history and more rote memorization, which to me, as someone who, I feel like I cheated in my exams because I used mnemonics. So I came up with lists and rhymes and acronyms to stand for stuff, and then I'll sit down in the exam and I'll write out on the first page all my acronyms that I'd learned, you know, not like learned, but just memorized, just literally memorized. And then I regurgitated that in my exams. I got an A in politics, and do you know what? I don't think I deserved an A in politics, because back then I knew fuck all about politics. I still don't know that much, but I mean, you know, I know a bit more than I did when I was 18. However, that was the system. You just basically, if you knew techniques, little cheats in order to memorize stuff, which isn't necessarily taught in schools. I often talk about how much Aboriginal culture in Australia is superior to the European culture that was imported over there, or exported, I should say, from Europe over there. And one of the things I always think about is like the way that Aboriginal children would learn. There's two things. One is they would go and walk about with their grandparents because their parents were busy working. So grandparents look after kids, which makes so much sense to me. But the other one is the fact that there are 500 different tribes all over, Aboriginal tribes all over Australia, all with their own languages, all with their own legends, all with their own stories and tales to tell. And in many of these cultures, they would not have any written language. And what they'll do is they'll tell stories, like fairy stories, like what stories you tell a kid about magical creatures going on magical adventures. And those stories translated to maps. And so that map would tell you, like, the vast areas that Aboriginal people, for 50,000 years, were hunter-gatherers and farmers as well. They managed the land, not perhaps in the farming that we're used to in Europe, but in the way that worked for the terrain in Australia, which is fire management more than anything. But they would tell these stories, and say, for instance, they'll talk about a rainbow serpent that laid some eggs, and those eggs would be the rocky place over there, and then it drank from a river, so that's where the river is. And if you learnt the story, you learnt the map. And human brains are hardwired, it seems, to remember stories. We are a species of storytellers, and we remember stories a lot easier than we remember facts. So, for instance, you might know a bunch of jokes, you might know some anecdotes from your life or something else's life. I'm sure that if you've watched a TV show or a movie and it stayed with you, I mean, some movies, honestly, I watch them and then I forget them instantly because they were just very forgettable. But just say that a movie really stayed with you. I'm sure you would have no problem describing what happened in that movie to someone else. However, trying to remember who directed it or who was in the movie, that might not be a thing that comes to you readily because you might not be that interested in it. But you remember the story, you remember the plot. And that's even if it's just a loose sort of memory. And this is where I think that this obsession with exams is just so wrong, because for me, I don't feel like I should have got an A at my A level. I'm glad that I did, but I don't feel like I should have got an A in government and politics at the age of 18, because all I did was memorize lists of stuff. The fact that Parliament was flexible, monarchical, unitary, bicameral. I remembered all these words, but I didn't really know what they meant. Do you know what I mean? Like, the knowledge wasn't there. The info, let's say the info was there, but the knowledge wasn't. So I was behaving much like AI works, where I was good at just regurgitating stuff, but applying logic to it and showing that I actually understood the subject, not so good, not so good. But I came out of like A levels with the fucking A. Maddening. To other people I didn't get an A, I suppose. But yeah, Ivan, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. That's very, very kind of you. Graham, I don't really like to use the word plebs. It's just my personal feeling on the matter. For me, I use the term everyday people. I know everyone has their preferences on words, though. Thanks for the super chat. No, that's what they call us. That's what they call us. And my point is that they are incredibly condescending, and they treat us like that. And that's why I use that word. When I wouldn't use it to refer to me and my mates, or people that I know, or anyone. I wouldn't use it myself. I'm using it as a word that they would regard us. They regard us as plebs. They regard us as underlings, the hoi polloi, the people with ideas above their station. They believe in stations in life, which I very much do not. But thanks for the super chat, mate. I'll try not to use that so much. Has anyone seen the 1998 film Happiness? Yes, I went to see that at the Corner House Cinema in Manchester in 1998. Imagine describing that film to someone who hasn't seen it. Yeah, good point. Yeah, I could describe it. Wouldn't want to. It's really fucked up. It's a really fucked up movie. My wife is a child psychiatrist and always sees a large spike this time every year from psychotic teenagers that have just done their GCSE exams. Yeah. It's too much pressure. Coursework is so much better, but they don't want kids to excel. They want kids to fail. They want the state school kids to fail. Don't forget, only 7% of children go to private schools. The people who went to those private schools were in government for 14 years. Their advisors went to private schools. The people writing articles about what they're doing on the internet and newspapers, they all went to private schools. The comedians making jokes about what the government were doing all went to private schools. The presenters who were presenting the news, telling people what these people had done, all went to private school. The judges who decide on these cases to decide whether it's legal or not what the government's doing, they all went to private school. You can see a line go through, and I know there's going to be someone who's going to go, but not 100% of people. Yeah, okay, so let's say two out of three, well over half, when it should be what 1/15 or something, if that. Anyway, so they made the content harder. They added more Shakespeare. They called it rigour and raising standards. But the reality is they've added more stress, more failures, and a bigger gap between the rich and the poor. Much bigger gap. And the 9-to-1 system has made things worse because employers, parents, even teachers have struggled to interpret it. Apparently 9 is a A star, but then an 8 is an A star as well, and a 7 is an A. And employers preferred the clarity of C grade. Everyone knew what it meant, whereas 4 or 5 is kind of opaque. Like 4 is the equivalent of a weak C, and 5 is the equivalent of a strong C or something mental like that. It's not a great system by any stretch of the imagination. It feels like quite opaque, and it artificially spread the top end as A star became 7, 8, 9, and it made to make distinctions between already high achieving pupils while leaving the bottom third labelled as failures. So again, it's helping the kids who went to private school, helping kids who had private tuition, at the detriment of kids who come from families that maybe can't afford to spend £30,000 a term sending little Tarquin off to his posh Borstal. Ivan, thank you very much for the second super chat of the morning. Thank you very much. Back in the day, my school days, I struggled with coursework personally. It pressured me so much more than these exams, so it's not one size fits all. Yeah, I absolutely agree, Ivan. I think it should be whatever works best for people, and probably thinking about it like, I, possibly because of my ADHD, with coursework, I would very much leave it to the last minute to get it done. I still do. And I can understand why there needs to be the best system to achieve the best outcomes for all students. And if you excel at exams, that option should be there. But if you are more comfortable and better at doing coursework and you can't deal with the stress of exams, I don't think it should be a one size fits all system. And the way that they do the exams, of having them all at the same time, all at the end, it just seems like a torturous way of doing it. Having it where you have exams all through, but it's to assess whether you understand the stuff. Not necessarily, this is it. If you mess up on this one day, on this one exam, that's it. Scrap heap for life, which is the mentality that the Tories clearly want. Being diagnosed as dyslexic when I was 30, an exam-based education system was not good for myself. Thank you very much to Francis there for that super chat, Francis Winrow. And yeah, I agree. I talked about my brother before. Hi, Mike, if you're watching this, but he wasn't diagnosed with dyslexia till he'd left school, and he was only diagnosed with ADHD a couple of years ago. He's in his 50s. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's if those things had been looked at earlier, things might have improved. That might have been better for him going through university, but still, he got through. It was going through school, but still, he got into university, got into UMIST, did a computer science degree, done really well for himself. So. Some people succeed despite the system, and some people fail because of the system. Private schools don't want state school students doing well, as it will expose how utterly useless their students are, says Chris C. I'm minded to agree. And when you find out that the head of Ofsted is privately educated and private schools don't have to be inspected by Ofsted, but state schools do. It's all quite interesting. It's all quite interesting, isn't it? Frustrating as well. Anyway, so yeah, coursework was a lifeline for working class kids, those with unstable home lives, or those who struggle in timed high pressure exams, and taking that option away entirely is a disgrace. Private school kids get small classes, individual tutoring, extra coaching, and they thrive in exams. Those schools don't have to follow the national curriculum. They can just teach kids mnemonics. They can just teach kids how to just remember shit for the rest of the time, and that's cool. Removing the coursework from GCSEs tilted the playing field even more towards the wealthy. State school kids get underfunded schools, stressed teachers, larger classes, less support in general, and they struggle with it. I mean, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the mental health on the students in England now sit between 24 and 31 hours of exams at 16, double or even triple the total in countries like Ireland or Canada. This leads to anxiety, panic attacks, burnout, and even suicidal ideation, which I just, yeah, for a kid, for 16-year-olds, linked directly to exam stress. COVID made this worse, with attainment gaps between rich and poor kids growing even bigger. So let's talk about the attainment gap. The reforms widen the divide between private and state pupils. Data from the Sutton Trust shows that 46% of London kids had private tutoring, compared with 30% nationally. This meant richer kids could buy extra help while the poorer kids couldn't, and the result is privilege becomes entrenched and opportunities are stifled. It's bad enough that nearly all of the fun jobs in our country in this life are hogged by the rich, by the children of rich people. They hog all the fun jobs. So we, the lesser people, are not allowed to even consider a job in that industry. We just have to get on with working a 9 to 5 job, which isn't creative, which isn't musical, which isn't anything to do with the arts, because that's not our place. That's having ideas above our station. And I have so many friends who did really well in their 20s in bands and things like that, and then just had to give up because the way that the system is set up, it helps bands like, posh bands like Mumford and Sons and people who went to private school, like the guy who's the main guy from the 1975. But other bands trying to keep their head above water, it is very, very difficult. And I've spoken to friends of mine who are in bands, sometimes quite famous bands, talking about how difficult it is. Even they might be selling loads of tickets for gigs, but whether any of that money filters through to a level that is sustainable. And so you'll find, if you look at a lot of 90s bands, a lot of them, even if they're not disbanded, a lot of their members do other jobs. They're not just that's not just the whole thing being in the band. They do other stuff, because it ain't what it used to be in terms of making money. Miss Paula Thomas, thank you so much for the super chat. It's very kind of you. My brother-in-law went to private school. He has supported their abolition ever since. Yeah, Robbie Coltrane, who played Hagrid in the Harry Potter movies and also Cracker in the TV show. I forgot what the name of it was. What was it called? Oh yeah, Cracker. He went to private school and he hated them, and he said he was calling for their abolition back in the 1980s before it was cool. But the thing is, you talk about the abolition of private schools and people jump on you, even people who don't go to private school, their kids don't go to private school, they're never going to go to private school, because we become so brainwashed that we believe that this is the best way of doing things. And they worry about, but what if a private school child goes to a state school? Well, just got to tell people that a state school, on average, it costs about £8,000 to put a kid in a year through state school, right, each year. Whereas for a private school pupil, they end up with all the tax breaks they get. And don't forget, these schools are charities, okay? So there's match funding coming from the government for charities, that thing, gift aid, that thing, yeah, that comes from the taxpayer. And so they get whatever money they get. We are adding to that from the taxpayer. They get bursaries, they get subsidies, they get money off the government to build a new badminton court or build a new golf course. This is, meanwhile, in state schools, the paint is peeling off the walls. They're using computers from 35 years ago on Windows 95 and, that'd be 30 years ago, won't it? They're using computers from 30 years ago, and the staff, there's a constant turnover of staff because they can't keep hold of the good teachers. And some of the teachers that are there are obviously stressed out about having to tutor a group that is over 30 kids at once. And some of those kids have special educational needs. Some of them have chaotic home lives through no fault of their own and need more attention. They need more support. But the kids who get the extra support are the rich kids who don't need that. Who gets the extra support? The rich kids. Who gets the extra tutoring? The rich kids. Not the kids who actually need it. The rich kids, so they can go to a fancy university and get a job and buy a fucking expensive car and have a yacht when they grow up. Do you think we could help the kids who are not going to have a job when they grow up? Never mind a yacht. Sarah, thank you very much for adding to the chats there. I've always struggled with exams, and even now, if I wanted to go back driving HGVs, I would have to do an exam, even though I have experience of the job. Yeah, exams are not necessarily the best way of finding out if you're particularly good at stuff. Tommy Lee says, is it just me, or do indie stroke rock bands have a higher ratio of private school mafia alumni than, say, punk, hardcore, rap, hip hop? Yes. Yeah, they do, because they get instruments paid for them. Because so these charities, these schools that say that they're charities, right? on average, this has gotten to Sutton Trust, only 1% of the pupils who go there get a full bursary. So in order to get a full bursary, your parents need to be earning less than, like, say, I think it's £18,000 a year. And so to the fact that only 1 in 100 kids go into these schools, you're like, okay, what do you do with the rest of the money? What do you do with the rest of that money that you've got to spend on the pupils? And a lot of it is spent on musical instruments and sporting equipment. And we're subsidising it. We're subsidising it through gift aid. We're subsidising these rich kids to go on skiing holidays and have trombone lessons. Meanwhile, in state schools, music lessons are dead expensive. You've got to pay for them, and you've got to provide your own instruments in most cases. The school might not necessarily have a guitar, or might not have a trumpet, or might not have a piano for you to use. I don't think you can bring a piano to school. Just trying to get it on the bus is a bit difficult. So, yeah, it just means that learning instruments has gone by the wayside. It really has, in state schools. And as a result, the only kids who are growing up and being able to play instruments and have time to play in a band and do all the shit you got to do in a band, which is do loads of gigs for free, essentially pay money out your own pocket to play gigs for people, because no one wants to pay for gigs, except unless they're a racist. And yeah, so that's why it's much more dominated by the PSM than it ever was before. Ivan, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Oh, you're very generous today. I think there should be more political education in school, including politics as a GCSE option, says Ivan. I think there's an argument there for having civics or something. One of the issues that I have is that I never feel like it should be compulsory, and I agree with you that it should be a GCSE option. I really like that idea. But yeah, the way that it was set up when I was in school, you had to do CDT, which was insane craft design and technology for the kids at the back. For my 1 year, we had to do it because Thatcher said, or no, it wasn't even Thatcher back then, it was Major, because Major said, oh, you got to do this. And we were like, okay, all right. So we had to do it, and I had to do a language, and I'm shit at languages. It just made me feel like shit. It just made me feel like I was an idiot because I just couldn't get it. Other kids were doing really, really well and speaking French fluently, and I'm sitting there going, what? Why is this table masculine or feminine? I don't understand. And trying to learn all the different endings to words, depending on whether we're saying we do something, or he does something, or she does something, or Jesus Christ. So yeah, I don't want any subjects to be compulsory. The least one I want to be compulsory is religious education. Honestly, drives me up the wall. Why do you have to do RE for GCSEs? In many schools across Britain, you have to do it. You have to learn. And I'm sorry if I'm going to offend some people watching this who are deeply religious. But how do I put this delicately? The study of fairy stories from the Bronze Age should not be an academic subject in any way, shape or form for kids doing GCSEs. Maybe as a specialist topic when you're studying at university, in the same way that you might look into the Klingon language or the worlds of Middle-earth. Yes, fine, do it then. But I'm sorry, but I really think that that is something that you shouldn't have to do for GCSE. I mean, I think it should be an option, perhaps. I'll be open to that. But to make it compulsory for kids across the country, thousands of kids, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of kids that have to do RE, I think it's just bizarre. It is absolutely bizarre. I'm offended by the religious, says Lost Missionary. Oh, good. I'm glad I didn't offend you there. Yeah. Joanna says, wow, state schools have really gone downhill. Even my shitty state school back in the 80s had loads of musical instruments to borrow. Yeah, and you got to pay. And Chris is talking to Scott. Scott, you were identified as needing additional support at school. You were instantly labelled as stupid and thick by the other kids. Same with those in the lower set. Absolutely horrific, says Chris. Yeah, and also when kids were getting free school meals, they were bullied by the other children, which is why I think that all the kids should get free meals, which is what they do in London. I completely agree with that. Martin Harris says, my son's school was fully equipped with recording studios. The youngest bought a drum kit home for the holidays. They also have a gym, sports centre that pays for itself for external membership. Cool. Which school is that, Martin? Which school is that? If you can say. Martin, Mr. Tis says, only faith schools ever compulsory. Yeah, but there's loads. Well, I don't know. Because the schools that my friends' kids go to, and they have to do GCSEs, and I don't think they're particularly faith schools. They're just like nominally faith schools. They don't do like morning prayers or anything. But yeah, we studied all religions in my state school. Says K8. Yeah, but they're all. I mean, but they're either all nonsense or all but one is nonsense. And we don't learn, I don't think in RE you learn about the ancient Egyptian religions. I don't think do you learn about the Greek gods these days, or do you learn about paganism? Do you learn about the Norse gods? Do you learn about I don't know. It was a long time ago since I went to school. I didn't have to do GCSE RE, thank God. Liverpool College, that's Martin Howe. So Liverpool College was private, and now it's not, is it? It's an academy now. When I was a kid, it was private. But yeah, they've a lot of wealthy people from Liverpool send their kids there, or get their kids into Liverpool College. So, you know, I keep saying this, you know what would really help? The PTA to make a bit of money for the school, whichever school it is, somewhere in the world, in this country. A millionaire on the PTA. Yeah, that would really help. A billionaire would be even better. Thank you very much to George only for the £5 super chat. I feel strongly about this. If RE is compulsory, then why isn't history compulsory A? Yeah. I don't think history should be compulsory either, even though I do want people to know history. I want people to know stuff about what's happened in the past. That was my subject that I took at university was politics and modern history. So obviously I've got an affection for it, but I know that other people don't. I know that other people aren't interested. I know other people find it boring. So I wouldn't make any, apart from English and maths, they're the only two subjects, and it's English language, like English, not lit. I do not think that in order to get on in life, you need to know your Coriolanus from your Hamlet. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't think you need that. If you're interested, cool. That's groovy. But when English is compulsory, I think it should be about reading and writing, making sure that you leave school being able to write and read at a really good level in order to get on in life. And same with maths, just being able to do maths problems that come up in everyday life, percentages, and measuring stuff. If you're working in the back garden, you need to measure how much stuff you need for whatever you're doing. That's all great, you know. Quadratic equations, I think, can wait till A levels. I really do. I know that some people are going to go, but okay, I like quadratic equations. Yeah, fair enough. You like them, but other kids find them absolutely horrific, difficult, and you never use them once you leave university, once you leave school, unless you go and study maths at university or physics or something like that. And yes, you need that foundation if you're going to do a science subject. But if you're not going to do a science subject, it's a bunch of your time that has been absolutely wasted learning something that you're never going to use in life. You may as well teach them how to do Sudoku. At least they might get something out of that. We've got another super chat. We've got two super chats coming. Oh, this is very kind. Hello, thank you. We've got Paula Thomas with £10. Thank you. Instead of abolition, how about a campaign to remove charitable status? And while we're at it, why not insist on private schools meeting the minimum standards the state schools have to meet? Yeah. I would like to move towards abolition, but on a step there, yes, remove charitable status, because that's a fucking joke. These are businesses that make loads of money. I would make it so they all have to be Ofsted inspected. This is a which Labour I think are doing. This is a safeguarding issue. The fact that so much abuse goes on in these schools, not just between the teachers and the children, but also the children to each other. The bullying that goes on, the mental trauma that's passed down, to generational trauma as parents send their kids to the same posh borstal that they were abused in. And yeah, get rid of the charitable status. You're absolutely right. There's a lot they can do in order to bring private schools into line, but I think that it should be against the British Constitution to pay for education. That's it, like it is in Finland, which has the best education system in the world, because it's not about the top few. You know, this is what annoys me, because if you go to one of these posh schools, if your parents are rich and they're well connected, you don't need GCSEs, you don't need A-levels, you don't need a university degree to get on in life. We do. The rest of us do. We hope to get anywhere. Ivan, thank you very much for the £20 super chat. It's very kind of you. Competitive sports shouldn't be compulsory either. I went through hell with that in my school days. I had a lot of physical difficulties too. It was awful. Different sort of PE for those who can, but not compulsory sports. Yeah, Ivan, I agree. And there's ways of being able to be fit and exercise without it having to be competitive. And there are ways of making that a reality and making that a possible thing for kids to do. If you like training on your own, because that's the way that you can get healthy and get that exercise, there should be the facilities to be able to do that. I think they just do team sports because it's just easier if you've got a group of 30 kids just to have one play footy against the other. But you're right, if you're one of the last picked and you're just standing there doing nothing, it's not even good. It's not good for your mental health, but also it's not good for your physical health if you're just sort of hanging out, in defence, and you're not actually moving very much when you're playing hockey or whatever. I get it. I get that completely. And again, the competitive nature. I mean, some kids thrive in that competitive nature, competitive environment. But some kids really don't, and it can be to their detriment. And it's why we need a more holistic view of schools, and why, when I get back to my point about the fuck up that the system wasn't perfect before Gove and Cummings came along, but they just made a bad situation so much worse with their one size fits all for state schools mentality. One size fits all, but only for state schools. So I realised the sun's just come through the window and I've gone really white. So let me just change my camera settings a little bit. Oh God, Jesus, wow. That's not good. Now I've gone too dark. I wanted camera settings, please. Camera settings. App settings. There we go. Oh, Jesus Christ. Why do they have to make it complicated to dick around with your camera? I don't want privacy settings. I don't want Jesus Christ. Okay. Let's get up the brightness a little bit. That's too much, isn't it? You can all be my producers now, and you can tell me if I look right. Ooh, going very contrasty. It's very Memento. I've got all Memento. Is this the bit that's in the future or the past? Or I love that movie. Such a great movie. That's too dark. It's probably a bit too bright. But there, let's leave it at that for the moment. You can see me. That's the main thing. Let me put it this way. GCSE does not really prepare you for A-level. A-level does not really prepare you for degree level with regards to mathematics. The jump each time is large. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe there's an argument for having two GCSEs for maths. You can, I think they do this, don't they? Have advanced maths as a GCSE or something like that. But just like, if you are just trying to get through school and you're not very good at maths, you're very good at academic stuff, maybe that should be encouraged. And what we need to get back to here as well is this idea that schools should be a place not just for learning, but for discovery of what you're good at, discovery of what you excel at. And if you can find what you excel at, and then they can nurture that enthusiasm and excitement that you get out of that particular subject. And everyone's got a talent. I am yet to meet someone who is completely, uniquely untalented. And that's just because I've never met Matt Hancock in real life. But most people have a talent, or many talents. But trying to shoehorn everyone into the same pigeonhole just does not work. And so, yeah, if you do want to pursue a career that is going to involve mathematics, allow there to be a GCSE that is that does have quadratic equations in. But for the rest of us who aren't going to be doing that, if you're going to make if you're going to make English and maths compulsory, which I do agree with, I don't think it should have the Shakespeare. I don't think it should have the quadratic equations necessarily. But if you want to do higher English or English lit, I guess it is, and you can do Shakespeare. You can study Frankenstein, Dracula, the Grapes of Wrath, whatever you want to read. And Chris C says, yet all Labour seems to be bothered about is which toilets trans children can use when they go back to school in September. Yeah. Oh, I was talking to Rachel this morning on the chat. Hi, Rachel, if you're watching. And she was saying about we were talking about how Labour have just completely dropped the ball on this, and even Phil agrees with us here that demonising trans people, making trans people's lives more difficult, is not a vote winner for Labour. It is not a vote winner, it is just a vote loser. And it is a huge vote loser, and there are many people watching this now who voted for Labour last year who won't vote for them next time and may never vote for Labour again. Unless there's a change at the top and they get rid of wedge streeting and they issue an apology to all trans people in Britain and around the world and give them £1 million each compensation for being such twats. I don't know. I don't know if that would even cover it, to be honest with you. What they've done is absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking. And you're right. They seem to have some mad priorities at the moment, Labour, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Me and Phil will talk about it tomorrow on the agenda, so please join us for that. I kind of think the academy system won't ever allow your great ideas regarding discovery. Yeah, because it's one size fits all. National curriculum doesn't have to be followed by private schools, but it does have to be followed by state schools. And then the people monitoring the way that national curriculum is taught is Ofsted, which is run by private school people. And the people in the education department and Labour, under the Tories, were all private school kids who never took part in the state school system, never had that experience. So, and it doesn't. The changes they made didn't necessarily affect private schools in the way that it affected state schools. Pete says, also built my own guitar amplifiers later on. Oh, that's very cool. Guitars themselves. Pete's music, that is amazing. That is it was a passion. Encouraging it would have been the smart move, not the dark satanic mills. Yeah. Well, I mean, my talent in school was storytelling. Like, I could write you a story. I could just come up with a story and it would have a really good, compelling character, protagonist, a beginning, middle, and end. I seem to innately understand the structure of storytelling in the modern age, because we've grown up with films, and films have a specific way of telling a story, and you don't notice it when you're watching a film unless you study film. But there is a definite amount of time that you can leave it until you have to have a cliffhanger, till you change the reel of the film going back in the day. But that structure's still there. It's very simply put, someone goes on a journey of discovery, or something changes in their life and they have to deal with it. And you can sum up every story that's ever been told since the dawn of time as someone wants something but they're having trouble getting it. There you go. Every story, somebody wants something, having trouble getting it. Pretty much, that's it, in a nutshell. But the idea of like the journey of the protagonist and what they learn things along the way, and then usually there's a point where it seems that all is lost, and then they overcome the odds to get what they need by the end of the story, not necessarily what they want. And it's quite interesting the way that some films will. You have a character that is pursuing something that they think they want, and then at the end of the movie they realize that wasn't what they wanted. And you can say, oh, but Graham, a horror film isn't somebody who wants something and they're having trouble getting it. Yes, it is. A horror film is someone who wants to not be stabbed in the head by a raging lunatic wearing a hockey mask, and they're having trouble but not getting stabbed in the head by a raging lunatic with a hockey mask on. So yeah, even horror films. If you're trying to think of some films that don't follow that mold, I mean, there are obviously exceptions where you might just have two characters talking or something, a duologue. Something like that are exceptions for it, but generally speaking, stories. And like, I was good at it, but it just wasn't encouraged in my school. It just wasn't encouraged. Writing in general, I still remember, and I'll always say this: 100 people can be complimentary, and then one person says something, and you're just like, oh, and you really take it to heart. So I had one essay that I wrote for English once when I was in school, and I was given like a C- for it or something for this essay. And the comment from my teacher was too journalistic. And I remember I said, "Sir, what?" I went up and said, "What do you mean? I don't understand." And he says, "You always write like you're telling a joke. You always write like, here's the big setup, and you're working towards the punchline, which is the conclusion." And I'm like, yeah. Like, that's how you write. That's how you tell a compelling story. Like, and he's like, oh, it's always built up to the last line. And I was thinking about this because this week, as I've told you before, there's a BFI edition of The Hidden Fortress that's just come out in 4K. It's an Akira Kurosawa movie. It's fantastic. It's a brilliant movie. And it involves a princess who has to travel behind enemy lines with this old samurai who has to confront his former student who's on the other side of this battle, and the whole thing seen through the eyes of these two droids. I mean, idiots, players, actors, and it was incredibly influential on Star Wars. And I wrote an essay about this 10 years ago for the BFI. For when the new Star Wars film was coming out, for when The Force Awakens was coming out. And with this reissue of The Hidden Fortress, in the first pressing of it, they've included my essay in the booklet for it. It's really cool. Like, I'm dead excited about it. It was an article that I wrote years ago, kind of forgotten about. But the article is probably one of the best things I've ever written. And the last line of it, it's probably the best sentence I've ever written. It builds up to the last sentence, and the last sentence to me is just like chef's kiss, perfect. That was a really good thing that I wrote. And I think that if I'd given that to my old English teacher, Mr. Hayes, he would have given me a C- and gone too journalistic. I'm pretty sure of it. So yeah, again, I don't feel like some of my talents in school were identified, and even if they were identified in some way, I don't think they were encouraged in the way that I feel they should have been encouraged for me to, get on in life. Not that I haven't got on in life, but you know what I mean. Ivan, thank you very much for the £20 super chat. I have an interest to declare. Years and years ago, when I used to be able to be in paid work, I once had a paid job at a private school as a garden the grounds person. Oh my God, I used to have run-ins with the management. I can imagine, Ivan. I've got friends who work at private schools. And like it says on the privateschoolmafia.com, if you go there, I don't have a problem with people who went to private school. Femi went to private school. He's one of my best mates. Femi, he went to private school. Alex Kerr, who does the Politics X, he went to private school. Gemma Forte, she went to private school. Like, these are friends of mine. Like, I don't have a problem with people who have gone to private school. I've got a mate who went to Harrow, for fuck's sake. My problem is that is a system, Don't hate the player, hate the game, or whatever the expression is. And Miss Paula Thomas saying BBC reporting GCSE pass rates falls to 67.4%. This is stupid. Yeah. Pete says, Joanna, I loved physics. Every aspect of it made sense and really triggered my learning. And my natural defaults encouraged my math skills. Fantastic subject. Yeah. Well, my partner's physics, GCSE, A-level, degree, master's, and PhD. So that's going quite far with your whole physics. Tommy says, Dazed and Confused doesn't really follow that structure, just kids hanging out and having a good time. Yeah, but they're trying to get on in life. But the man won't let them. The man is the antagonist. Then their own hopes and dreams for the future. Ivan, is just a job. My partner started a teaching career in a private school early years and soon realised the kids are just like any other early years kids. Yeah, Martin, you're right. They are. Like I say, I've got no problem with the people who work at these private schools. I've got no problem with the kids who go there. My problem is with the institutions themselves, which are fundamentally unfair, which are fundamentally detrimental to the fabric of British society, because it means that we are an incredibly class-based society still in 2025, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody talks about how class-based the system is, and then on a day like today, when the GCSEs come out, we can all see it. We can absolutely see it. Captain says, I think the movie is Strangers on a Train. He decided to help when she finishes his sentence after he had trouble doing it himself. Strangers on a Train, that was a great movie. Alfred Hitchcock, wasn't it? They swap murders. Ooh, spoilers. Power to the People, Graham Price. We got told to write a ghost story in the 4th year English. Some girl literally copied the story of The Telltale Heart by Poe, and the teacher didn't notice, but I did. I realised some features are dim. Piece music. Yeah, we are encouraged to devise experiments to confirm concepts and collect data and analyse it and utilise the results. Also taught critical thinking, the greatest skill of all. Well, this is it. I don't think that exams encourage critical thinking. I might be wrong, but I do not think they do, considering I did well in exams because I just remembered stuff. Not necessarily because I had to think critically about it. I just knew stuff. Just stuff sticks in my head sometimes. If I'm asked, if I don't care about something, it will not stick in my head. I'm sorry. I'm gonna blame it on my ADHD, but I'm just terrible at remembering stuff that my brain takes no interest in. And my brain takes interest in weird shit, like just things that no one else would give a fuck about, but suddenly my brain goes, that's an interesting thing that you need to remember, Graham. It's very important that you remember that thing. I'm like, okay. So yeah, we're talking about the attainment gap, aren't we? And the fact that kids in London having private tutoring, privilege becoming entrenched, and every year about a third of students fail to achieve a standard pass in English or maths, which would be a 4. This isn't accidental. It's how the system is designed. Exams are norm reference. They're there for there to be winners. There needs to be losers. And kids as young as 16 are branded as failures. They're failed in life. This damages people's confidence and it narrows opportunities. Now, obviously, if you are a Machiavellian schemer like Gove or Cummings that wants, your sex trophies to do better than everybody else's, then you're going to be all for this system that is about the people who are farmed off at the age of 16 to the people who are going to make it and the people who aren't. And Gove and Cummings weren't trying to make education fairer. They wanted to impose a Victorian model of discipline, rote learning, and what they call resilience, which has just led to more mental health problems. Their reforms were less about preparing kids for life and more about controlling them and holding schools to account. Gove explicitly wanted kids to learn hard knowledge rather than skills, teamwork, or, this is the most important one for me, creativity. They wanted to stifle creativity. They wanted to sacrifice it at the altar because the only people they want in the creative fields are their mates who went to private school. That's it. They want to absolutely dominate it. They don't want anyone else to get a word in edgeways. And that is why only 8% of people working in film and TV in this country went to state school. Sorry, went to comprehensive. Working class, sorry, let's get straight. Only 8% of people working in film and TV, according to a study commissioned by Channel 4, who make film and make TV, only 8% are working class. Only 8% are working class. And over 50% come from private education. Over 50%. That is just horrific. That is just so wrong on every level. And this ideological rigidity has damaged an entire generation, but also I would argue that it has damaged the fabric of our nation and the creativity and the skills of our nation. People who are born working class might not get a chance to tell their stories. And so the only stories we get told in this country are gangster films made by people who went to private school, like Guy Ritchie went to private school, of course, he's not allowed to make movies. Or it's about posh people. It's about, we make so many films about posh people. It's ridiculous. And we pump out these period dramas about posh people in the past. If we do a film now, set now, like Bridget Jones or Four Weddings and a Funeral or Notting Hill, it's about posh people doing posh things. Anyway, I work for Hare and Hounds. You know, it is like, come on. Do we have to sit here and watch posh people do stuff? Yeah, okay, I guess so. What posh people's problems in their life. Or if we are given occasionally a story about a working class family living up north, first of all, it's not made by a working class director. I mean, sometimes it is, but most of the time it isn't. Or written by a working class person. And so they have this characterization of working class life as being miserable and not much fun, and everyone's really horrible to them. And the reality isn't that. The reality isn't that. Most people who are working class are getting on with their lives and having a great time. They just are. I mean, there are struggles that people don't have if they've got a bit more money, certainly. But if I had a choice between going to a working class pub and just having a knees up with people here in Liverpool, or going to some posh elite members club in London, where there's fuckers with the old copies of the Times, old people who smell of cabbage, I'd much rather be in the working class fucking knees up place. Thank you very much. Put me down in third class in the Titanic. I don't want to be up with the toffs being all bloody la-ti-da. Yeah, anyway. So yeah, I think that this ideological rigidity has damaged not just these generations of kids, but also it's damaging to our social fabric. And former Ofsted boss Michael Wilshaw and ex-Education Secretary Kenneth Baker, after which Baker Days, before they were Inset Days, they were Baker Days, Kenneth Baker introduced GCSEs, and even elite schools like Eton want GCSEs scrapped. And teachers are calling it a trauma factory that makes kids ill. Employers say they don't reflect modern skills, and the Tony Blair Institute has called for reform. You've got the Tony Blair Institute, you've got Kenneth Baker, you've got Eton calling for GCSEs to be scrapped. I mean, and Simon Jenkins said GCSEs are not about kids, they are about control and measurement, which they absolutely are. It's not about helping kids to thrive and helping kids find the subjects that they enjoy and that they're good at, and while giving them a good grounding in English and maths that they need for everyday life. You don't need to know Shakespeare for everyday life. You don't need to know quadratic equations for everyday life. If you want to go into that field, yes, of course. If you're going to become a writer, yes, you do need to do Shakespeare. You just do. I know there's some people out there who don't think much of Shakespeare. I think Phil's one of them. But they're wrong. In all respects, they're wrong. But you do need it. You need that grounding. You need to know those stories. At least so if you ever have to mark someone's paper and they've just copied the plot of The Merchant of Venice, you can actually know that they've cribbed it from someone else. Tommy says, Lock, Stock and Snatch were basically just Cockney Tarantino, don't you think? Yeah. And Guy Ritchie would put on a Cockney voice. He put on a Cockney accent. when he was being interviewed, but he's actually quite posh. He married Madonna, Do you remember he married Madonna? Strange days. I don't know, Pete. I got tested for intelligence and it went the wrong way for them. Made them look bad. I could go up 3 years, but lose 3 years of education. I think it reflected on their teaching skills. Captain says, left school with nothing, 6 years, YTS, youth training scheme, and then joined up. Where I was from heroin had already turned up after Thatcher wrecked the town coal mining community. Sorry about that, Captain. I mean, that sounds really fucking shit. And yeah, Thatcher took away the coal mines, and I've said this before, like, all things being equal, it wasn't profitable, and it was really bad for the environment, and it was a shit job that people died at the age of 41 from black lung, or they died from a fucking cave in, or they died from suffocating, they died from water rising up when it rained. I mean, look, there were so many things. There's so many ways to die as a coal miner. It's a shit job. I'm glad there are no coal miners left in the UK. There's no coal mines at the moment. I don't think operating in the UK. The tunnel coal mines. I think they've gone the way of the dinosaurs, which is good. The bad thing is that in communities like mine in Durham, they didn't replace it with anything. In the 90s, in my village, we got a flat roof pub. Awesome. Thanks for that. Did she go out with Guy Ritchie before or after Dennis Rodman? I don't know. Can't remember. I'm not up on my Madonna knowledge. Miss Paula Thomas, who were the best bands when I was growing up? The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Who, the Animals. What they got in common? All were not only state educated, but also working class. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And actors of that generation as well. I mean, we mentioned Terence Stamp. He was very working class. So was Sean Connery, Michael Caine. But even going back, like, Cary Grant was very working class, born Archibald Leach in Bristol. And he did really, really well for himself because it was at a time that you could. And just the way that the British aristocracy, let's call them that, let's just call them the aristocracy because that's what they are, absolutely monopolised the arts in this country is to the detriment of everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, Banksy went to private school. Now, I've got a question for you. Do you think that if Banksy was a black lad growing up here in Liverpool who went the local comp and he was graffitiing everywhere with really cool graffiti stuff, right? Do you think he would be an artist now, well respected around the world, who's a multi-millionaire and he gets to do all these art projects and his works sell for millions, or do you think he'll be in jail? Have a think. So yeah, I really hate the fact that it does seem like it is so much more difficult to get into the fun. I call them the fun jobs, but I mean they're also the very well paid jobs as well. These jobs in the city, where the CEOs, high court judges, politicians, people running companies, so many of them are privately educated, and there's only so many jobs. There's a finite number of jobs, and if they're all completely hogged by this group of people, some of whom are fantastic at what they do. Honestly, they're brilliant. You know, Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman, and they're great. They're fucking fantastic. I'm really looking forward to watching this remake of The War of the Roses that they're in. But they're both privately educated. Of course they are. I mean, they're on the TV. They're in movies. And the rest of us, I feel, are being left behind and being let down, not just by the education system, but by the system in general. Catherine Berbel Singh, fucking idiot, the demon headmistress. She argues that exams are good for building resilience, and I'm like, what? What do we need? Are we at war? What do we need? We need to get kids to run over the fucking out of the trenches towards the machine guns. Is that what we need out of kids, or can we make kids bloom? Can we make kids like lead their best possible life for the short time, this blink of existence that we have on this planet? And they say without exams, schools would have no accountability. And I'm sort of on this. I'm like, what? They get Ofsted inspections, whereas private schools don't. Where's the accountability for private schools, eh? Oh, well, they don't need it. That's all right. It's just the state schools need accountability. And you can still have attainment, tests to see how the kids are doing, but it doesn't have to set the rest of their lives up. And they argue that life is tough and kids need to learn to fail. But the way that it's set up is if you fail when you're 16, that's it for the rest of your life. So you just continue failing. And this ignores how exams privilege those with resources and doesn't measure creativity, teamwork, or vocational skills. And it's absolutely right. And you know what? It's not even the kids who do badly. It's not even the kids who fail the GCSEs. It's the kids who do well, right? You talk about building resilience. Okay, so talk about someone I knew who aced his GCSEs, aced his A-levels, first class degree at university, absolutely brilliant. Got jobs that he wanted to, working for the places he wanted to work. He was told yes. And then he fucked up once and published something that I think that it wasn't meant to be published till midnight, and he published it a bit too early, right? And that from that moment, because he hadn't ever experienced failure in his life up to that point, because he'd always been a straight A student. He'd always been brilliant. He'd always been like, always top of the class, always top of the class. And the first time that he got knocked back and said no, from a job or from a position or whatever, it derailed his whole life. It derailed his whole life. And that was a kid who did well. Okay? I'm not talking here about a kid who failed their GCSEs. I'm talking about a kid who aced them. And they talk about resilience. We've got to build resilience. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And if you want to build resilience, you've got to do it in different ways. You can't just say at 16, you're brilliant and you're shit. Because then what happens is when those kids grow up, if the brilliant kid is told they're shit at some point, it's going to destroy them. And if the failed kid is told they're brilliant, they're not going to believe them. They're going to have imposter syndrome, which I have. I have incredible imposter syndrome. And it's why I still can't quite believe I've achieved what I have in my life. Because I'm like, nah, that must have been someone else. I can't even believe that I've done so many of these shows for you guys, watching this. It seems mad to me. I look at it, it's like 2,000 live shows or something are on my channel now. I'm like, bloody hell, have I done that much stuff? It all adds up, I guess. I don't know, but I did all right in my exams in school because I was smart, not because the teachers encouraged me particularly. In fact, I think they discouraged me. The only reason why I did so well in my A-levels, I was trying to impress a girl. Hugh Grant's a good egg. Yeah, Hugh Grant, love him. I met him. He's a lovely guy. He went to private school. I don't hate him, and he's a great actor. He's fucking brilliant. He's leading his best life at the moment. Anything that's got Hugh Grant in now, I'm just going to watch because he's just fucking fantastic. He's just having a great time. The one good thing Labour has announced, at least the civil service fast stream, is going to focus exclusively on working class people. Yes, Grim Fandang. Fandango. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. I think that is a fantastic, fantastic thing. And they'll say, oh, but is it not going to get the brightest and the best? Well, you're not getting the brightest and the best at the moment. Matt Hancock. There's 2 words that you need to say to anyone who says, oh, positive discrimination. Just say Matt Hancock, mate. You want a nation run by the likes of Matt Hancock? Fine, go ahead, do what you want to do, But if you want a country where you get the best people for the job with different ideas, different ways of thinking outside of the private school bubble or the private school box or whatever you want to call it, we need these people. We need these people, and we need to give them a leg up, because you don't just give them a leg up, you give their families a leg up by doing this. Look, if you give someone a decent fucking job, right, and they've got kids, and one of their kids is troubled for whatever reason, right, with a decent job, they'll have the money to help pay for that kid to get help. If they haven't got a decent job, they won't. And that troubled kid might go on to be a troubled teenager, and they might get in trouble with the law, and they might end up costing the taxpayer millions of pounds because they spend the rest of their life in and out of court, in and out of jail. Well, not working, while not, actually contributing to society in terms of taxes. And we have to pay for their stay at jails. That's not something that's provided for free by the private companies that run the bastard things. So, yeah, I mean, a rising tide raises all ships, and that's what we need to be looking at right now. And if that means discriminating against kids who went to private school, fucking so be it. You know what? I'm sick of hearing stories. James O'Brien expelled, Loser Fox expelled, Johnny Vaughan, he was arrested for trying to sell £50,000 worth of cocaine to a police officer, an undercover police officer. Like, normally, for any of us lot who didn't go to private school, that would have been the end of it. We would have got nowhere in life. We'd be working in McDonald's, we'd be working in Starbucks. Not that that's a bad job. I'm just saying, like, we wouldn't be presenting TV shows. We wouldn't be on the radio every fucking day. Maybe we'll be doing a YouTube stream. And most of the people says I would never condone bullying, but Matt Hancock is a special case. No, I'm sorry, no. I mean, that's funny, but no, bullying, it does not bring out the best in people. Miss Paula Thomas, before the Ofsted system, private schools were inspected. Indeed, there was a team of inspectors who were dedicated to closing bad ones. My dad was on it. Oh, wow. Was there? Was that in the 80s? They actually went into these schools and went, oh, hang on, is there a teacher here abusing all the children? Because I've heard a lot of stories about that. I didn't know there was anyone going in and checking them. I thought it was all in-house, like the newspapers mark their own homework. Colin says, could it be argued that there were worthier special cases than Matt Hancock? No. Matt Hancock cost the lives of tens of thousands of British people through his incompetence. Tens of thousands of British people died because of Matt Hancock. He is the poster child for incompetent, privately educated twats. And I just wish him all the ills of the world. I know you shouldn't, but there you go. So like I say, exams privilege those with resources, and it doesn't measure creativity, teamwork, or vocational skills. And resilience isn't built by trauma. It is built by support and opportunity and encouragement. That's how you build resilience. The idea that resilience is built through trauma is such an antiquated, ridiculous way of looking at life. It is sadistic, and it is a Victorian mindset that we should have left in the Victorian era. In fact, the fucking Victorians did leave it in their era. Don't forget, we complain about a lot of the things that the Victorians did because things were shit under the Victorian system. But they did ban child labour. They did abolish slavery. They did they did bring in workers' rights to some extent. Things got better. Not that much better, but they got a bit better. Give him a little bit of credit. Ivan, thank you very much. I'm going to give you lots of credit because you give me £10. Thank you. I'm not good at all today. All I want is a man to be with as a partner. All they see, though, is my medical conditions and that I'm housebound. As a result, I'm denied partner love. I'm sorry, Ivan. That's not great, is it? I'm really sorry to hear that, mate. And I know that it's difficult right now, but it won't always be like this. And things will get better. They always do. And yeah, I know how you feel right now. I've had periods in my life where I've been single and it's not been fun, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone that I like. Yeah, I hope that you get the support that you need and the encouragement and the treatment that you need to be able to either overcome or learn ways of mitigating the issues that you've got. And I hope that means that you, at some point, you are able to put yourself back out there into the world. And it's shit that you have to retire from the world at the moment because you're not getting the support that you deserve, and the support you are getting you're having to pay for, which I think really fucking sucks. So I'm sorry, Ivan, and I hope things get better. They will. So yeah, like I say, resilience isn't built by trauma. It is just not. I think even the Victorians came around to realise that eventually. And what could replace GCSEs? Let's talk about this for a moment, because we mentioned it a little bit earlier, didn't we? Well, we could keep GCSEs but reform them. We could bring back coursework and modular assessments alongside final exams, which is what we used to have, which is a much fairer system. Reduce the sheer number of exams and spread assessments over the 2 years. Simplify gradings back to A star to G, which is clear and well understood. The reason why they changed it to 1 to 9, by the way, or 9 to 1, is because they wanted to make the GCSEs more difficult, and they didn't want the new grade to equate to the old grade. So if someone in 2013 got an A, that they wanted people to know that a 9 was more than that, or an A star, a 9 was more than an A star, or whatever. They were making it more difficult and changing the boundaries and all that kind of stuff. But don't forget the number of kids who are given the different grades. it's set on basically how many kids there are. So there's kids who have to fail for some reason. It's just a ridiculous system. I don't think that all the kids can actually pass the GCSEs. I think that's actually possible. Or all the kids could get A's, for instance, because there's only a percentage that can get an A. So if you are, nearly on the borderline there, but loads of other people get an A star, you might not get an A star yourself. It's a shit system. Look, it's a shit system. I know I just explained that really badly, but never mind. I would like to allow for a mix of exam and portfolio for subjects like English, art, design, drama, and or we could just get rid of GCSEs and replace them with a school leaving diploma at 18, as many other countries do. This combines academic subjects, vocational training, and life skills, finance, IT, teamwork, civics. And it will give parity of esteem to apprenticeships and vocational training, and not just A levels. Something that I've always thought, like, why can't you get an A level in motorcycle maintenance? Why can't you get an A level in building? Why can't you get an A level in bricklaying? Why can't you get an A? These skills that people have, they're amazing. That's an incredible skill. I've spoken before about some of the lads who worked at my dad's shop. They had no qualifications. He owned the garage here in Liverpool, and but they could strip down a car to its essential parts in an afternoon and then stick it all back together again the next day, and being able to do that and knowing where everything goes, and every nut, every piston, every fucking cranny, every spark plug, every washer. I mean, that sort of knowledge is really fucking impressive, and I thought that was way more impressive than me memorizing what to say about fucking Titus Andronicus or something. The Victorians also started compulsory education. Yes, they did. What could replace GCSEs? AI agents. No. Leave AI out of this for the moment at least. So yeah, we giving parity of esteem to apprenticeships and vocational training, I think it would be a great idea. I think that would be great if you could get an A level in a vocational skill, not a B Tech, not an MVQ, whatever. It's an A level. It's the same as the same standard as getting something, and I think that would be really interesting, because one of the things that we do as well at the moment is we do separate children at the age of 18, or young adults, I guess, at the age of 18. We separate them into arts and scientists. This is why we don't have any polymaths anymore, which is ridiculous, because some of the best writers of all time were also scientists. Some of the best artists of all time were also mathematicians. And so when you look at it like that, you're like, why are we separating out kids when they go to university? Why are we separating them into arts or scientists or science? And we see this in our schools. You'll have a school that teaches academic subjects, but they won't teach practical subjects. So in an ideal system, you would have, say, 3 schools near each other, one that's more IT, one that's more mechanical, and one that's more academic. And when you choose your subjects to do for the last 2 years of your school, you can go to the 3 schools in the area. Maybe you have 1 day in one school, 2 days in another, and 2 days in another, and you can actually split your skills across your skills. You can split your academic qualifications between those things that you're good at. And in another way, we can have a look at GCSEs and go, well, we could still have attainment targets that we need the kids to reach, and we need to know the schools are teaching well, and we need to have ways of finding that out. But that is possible to do without it being an absolute cutoff at 16 of like pass or fail. We don't need that. I don't think that's very helpful at all. It should be more to do with, okay, we've got to this point now, you're 16, you're going to be doing your A levels or whatever they decide to call it, and we're going to give you the support that you need for the subjects that you're not doing so well on. You get that support because we know that you need that support, because we did an exam and we didn't do very well in it, for instance, rather than just like pass fail. So yeah, we could also push more teacher-led assessment, which I really agree with. Trust teachers to assess pupils' real progress, and moderate that nationally to ensure fairness, less high stakes, more accurate, and far less damaging to mental health. We have a mental health crisis at the moment in this country, and these fucking exams are not helping. And yeah, focus on skills that employers actually want: critical thinking and problem solving, communication, teamwork, adaptability. I mean, adaptability, flexibility. I mean, that is something that I could not have traveled to every country in the world without flying. on my own on a shoestring budget without being adaptable. I had to have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. Sometimes, like, it was my 17th attempt to do this thing that I needed to do, whether it was to get on a boat or whether it was to get into this country or whether it's to do this or that, whatever. I had to have contingencies, and I had to make sometimes split-second decisions based on the available information that I had. And sometimes I got it wrong. Sometimes I picked the wrong thing. I went, oh, I will do this, and I should have done that. And hindsight is obviously beautiful in 2020, but having that ability to be able to do that is something that I think that kids should be taught. Kids should have some kind of understanding in, not necessarily assessed against, but just, you know, those skills that employers actually see as critical, like critical thinking. We want exams not to, you know, out there that just measure recall, measure your ability to remember stuff. You'll find that life rewards adaptability, being adaptable, being able to change what you're doing or change the way things are done. Thinking out the box is not necessarily a taught thing, I don't think, because I don't know how you would go about teaching that. I mean, there must be some way of going about teaching that. But for me, I think that the way that exams work is that they're just there for a memory thing, whereas thinking out of the box is something that is actively discouraged by this exam system. So it's not necessarily that it has to be a subject. It has to be, you know, adaptability 101. You don't need that, but don't discourage it. Don't discourage people thinking differently and wanting to do things in a different way that might achieve the same result or an improved result. And we need that. We need people who are who can innovate. Some people who can think differently. And like I say, I think it might be difficult to have a subject based on that, but just don't discourage it. And I think these exams, because they want to put everyone in pigeonholes, success, failure, pass, fail, I feel like it's really, really discouraged. Individuality is discouraged in state schools, and it's not in private schools. Confidence, look at the confidence that the kids who go to private schools come out with. They come out with so much confidence, whereas the rest of us, yeah, not so much. We're like all racked with imposter syndrome. So Labour is currently reviewing the curriculum, but is terrified of being accused of dumbing down, which is something that the tabloids will always say. They need to encourage. They need courage to admit that Gove system is broken. The Labour government should scrap the 9-to-1 grades, return to letters. They should restore a balance of coursework and exams. They should introduce a national diploma. They should invest in teachers and smaller class sizes. They should tackle the tutoring gap, offering free tutoring for disadvantaged pupils, desperately needed across the country. And, you know, that's one-to-one education that those kids wouldn't otherwise get. And, shut down the private schools, or at least take away their charitable status. Education should be about opportunity growth and preparing young people for life. Instead, Gove and Cummings turn GCSEs into a political experiment, one that has hurt millions of people. Today's results aren't a reflection of kids' true ability. They're a reflection of a broken system that is designed to fail them. And we need the courage to scrap this exam cult and build something fairer. Build a system that works for the individuals in the system. And if you excel at exams and you can prove that you actually know what you're talking about, rather than just regurgitating a list of words that I memorized without knowing what they mean, literally writing down words, I don't know what this word means, I've just memorized it. How is that? How is that showing that I know what I'm talking about? It isn't. It absolutely isn't. 16 going on 17, says Thomas. Improve teacher training and pay better. Yep, couldn't agree more. Power to the People says he certainly did. I think he went to whatever party who gave him the highest position for most of his career. Not sure the politics mattered to him, hence him being voted out in 1945. We're talking about Churchill, I guess. Graham, I'd be interested to see how many England women's football team are privately educated. Is the Lionesses another leveller in British society? I don't know. I've got to look into it. But, football, here's something interesting, okay? So I noticed that there's a lot of working class kids who get into football. Now, they have football academies set up now. So Technically, they're private schools. If the kids show real ability at the age of 11, they might be put into one of these private schools, which are not paid for by the parents of the kids because they're coming from a working class background. So they get a leg up through that, and it's a football school where they push sort of excellence at footy in the hope that they will eventually go on to play for Liverpool or Everton or some other team, right? But I notice time and time again that when it's a rich person who went to private school and they spend their money on something daft, right? A gold tiara or something, that's never front page news. It's never like, oh, Princess Beatrice bought a fucking a voodoo doll or whatever it's called, a voodoo doll. One of those dolls that everyone's obsessed with at the moment. That's diamond encrusted. I mean, no one will care. But if a footballer does it, because they come from a working class background, a lot of them, they'll demonise for what they spend their money on and what they choose to do and what they choose to say in a way that the upper classes aren't. They're questioned, like, why did you spend your money on that when you could have been spending, oh, you think you're a bleeding heart liberal, you care about kids getting school meals, but you bought yourself a Ferrari. Explain that. Private school kids never get that question. George, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. It's very kind of you. We're ruled by the opinions of those with opportunity, but that shouldn't make them right simply because they're in the right place at the right time. Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. And I don't think necessarily that my opinions on this are the be-all and end-all. I think there's a discussion to be had. And I think but the main thing is, this isn't about punishing kids or making them resilient or making them into harder people, you know, making them man up and all this bullshit. This should be about the health and the prosperity of children across the nation. Because the healthier they are and the more prosperous they are, the better the country is. This helps the entire country. We don't want a nation of children, of adults who have now been left behind by society and will never rise above what the upper class, what the aristocracy has deemed their station. Ivan, thank you very much for the £20 super chat. That's very kind of you. When I could be in paid work, I really wanted to work up the ladder, but never really happened. However, none of them are doing what I do now with my campaigning and sticking my head above the parapet. Well, yeah, I mean, that's something, Ivan. And if everyone can subscribe to Ivan's channel, thanks very much for the super chat, mate. If you click on Ivan's name there, it should take you to his channel. And if you would like to subscribe, Ivan's making videos on there. I'm already subscribed. I'm subscribed. That would be really kind of you to do that. But yeah, well done for sticking your head above the parapet. And you're in a position to do that at the moment. So please make the most of it. Because one of the other difficult things is a lot of people work for someone who's part of the private school mafia, and therefore they cannot progress in life because they can't say the things that they want to say because they know their boss, who's PSM, will find ways of getting rid of them, which isn't great in any stretch of the imagination. The gammon way. The more people leave school without any real qualifications, the more people will vote for refuck. So, you know, it's in our interest to keep things left wing, to keep things nice, you know, to sort it all. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly go over to the papers in a moment, and then I'm going to wrap up pretty soon because it is 10:30, and I've been blabbering on far too long. My dad's asleep, so he's not been blurbling too much. You all right, Dad? He's still asleep. So I'm going to go and wake him up and give him some food. So I'm going to go and do that in a moment. But first, let's go over to the papers. Let's go over to the papers. So first of all, sorry. I open the papers and it does this thing where it decides that it's going to punish me. It's going to punish me for going to the papers by making that advert come up. Okay, so there's a really interesting story on the front cover of the Mirror here. This is a refugee from Somalia who was brutalized by Somali terrorists, and is told how migrant hotel protests are deepening the trauma of already terrified residents. We don't want to live like this. As Farage fuels fury over the Tory-made migrant hotel crisis, desperate asylum seekers speak out. And I think that's worth pointing out there. God, he's so fucking ugly, isn't he? Jesus, the state of that. Fucking Nigel Farage, Jesus Christ, private school mafia, of course. Hey, I need to get a bank account with Coots. That's what you want to say to people who vote for refuck. You got to ask them this question, right? This is the question you need to ask them, right? They're thinking of voting for refuck, or they say they vote for them. Say, why is it so important to you that Nigel Farage gets a posh bank account at Coots? Why is that the most pressing? Is that the most pressing issue in your life? Make it personal. Say, are your kids doing all right? Is your partner doing all right? Your mum and dad, they doing all right? This is the thing that you want to pursue more than anything. The fact that he wants a posh bank account and wanted to start a national campaign because he didn't get a posh bank account with Coots, the bank account that you can only get if you're a multimillionaire. A multi-millionaire, by the way, not just a millionaire, multi-millionaire. Retailers warn that Reeves that new taxes will hit living standards. Of course they do, because they don't want to pay more tax. There's some attractive young women there going to the reading festival there in Reading. And then here we have a story here saying everything's better with company, even Reading. So even going to Reading is better if you're with other people. And then these girls over here are going to a reading festival, which is entirely separate. Labour councils explore migrant hotel legal action. Tamworth and Wirral amongst the 80 regions primed to take measures to close sites, which is going to create a massive headache for the government. And as much as I don't want people being in hotels, because it's a stupid fucking system that we've set up, and it's traumatic for the people in the hotels, and it just gives the far right something, a target. It paints a target on the backs of the people staying at these hotels unfairly. So I want that done away with. Thank you very much. But at the same time, I want these people to have somewhere to stay that is safe. And we've got a huge housing shortage at the moment in this country because we've had idiots in charge for a very long time. And the new idiots aren't that much better. Suzanne Jones is a terrific as PM in Crisis. She's playing someone, I don't know who's Soran Jones. I said Suzanne, didn't I? It's Soran Jones. She's an actress. She's 46 years old. She's the same age as me. And she played Karen MacDonald in Coronation Street. And she's from Greater Manchester, and she went to a normal school. Well, it was a Roman Catholic high school, but normal school. Thank God. So yes, well done, Saran, for being normal. Well done. Well done for not being one of those private school people. Okay, so Labour councils join revolt over asylum hotels at the Epping ruling. So even Labour councils are now suing to get rid of these hotels. A terror charge against kneecap rappers should be thrown out, court told, which I agree with. Israel says it will expand Gaza City offensive. This is just a horrific story of Israel. They've called up 60,000 reservists, and now they're going to invade a city. And by the way, yesterday they split. The way Palestine is split in two. You got the Gaza Strip and the West Banks. Yeah, now they're splitting the West Bank into two as well. So you will need special permission from the Israeli government to move from one side of the West Bank to the other. Absolutely disgusting. Apartheid just happening in plain sight. And now they're going in for a ground warfare into Gaza City. It's beyond. I'm glad I didn't really talk about this today, because it really upsets me, and I know that upsets some of the people watching this as well. We do need to talk about it, but this show today is just about GCSEs, so I'm sure we'll talk about it again in the future. BBC needs to be given protection from Farage. It's a really interesting story here on the Guardian. The BBC must be given complete political independence in case Nigel Farage enters government. A former director of news, a broadcaster, has said it's completely right. James Harding, who's editor-in-chief of The Observer, pointed to Donald Trump's move to defund publicly backed US media. So yeah, it needs to be robust, because Labour's got to take this seriously. Like Labour, right, you can tell they just thought the Tories are a mess, right? We've got the 2029 election in the bag because the Tories ain't going to get stuff together, and all we need to do for the next 5 years is say, look at these guys, aren't they shit? And if they, criticise any policy, you can say, wasn't it shit under them? You just need to make a few things better and say, wasn't it shit under the Tories? And people go, yeah, it was. So they won't vote for the Tories. However, refuck votes huge spanner in the works with that plan. Labour have got to be better than they've got to be better than Labour have ever been in government in the past. And at the moment, Labour seems to be worse than Labour have ever been in the past. And maybe this is why Labour are only, on average, in power for 33 of every 100 years. Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the Daily Express. We've got drug hope for bladder cancer sufferers. There's lots of cancer breakthroughs coming through, which is good, despite what that disgusting worm RFK Jr. is trying to do in America. Millions face energy bills rip-off. Millions face being ripped off as energy bills are set to rise again, despite Labour vows to cut them, campaigners warn. Well, yeah, that's because our energy, the price of our energy, is set by foreign dictators in other countries. And they were discussing on the radio yesterday, they were talking about drilling licenses and they were talking about our oil. And I'm screaming at the radio, going, it's not our oil. It's not our oil. It's not our oil. Don't think just because it's in our territorial waters that it is our oil. We ain't going to get a discount because it's from our oil supply. We are not. We are not going to get a discount. You buy it at the international rate. If you want to make the price of energy come down, if you want to push the green energy revolution, you need to build more wind turbines. You need to build more solar panels. You need to give solar panels out to people who want them on their roofs of their houses. I was thinking about this yesterday after we were talking about it. You get people who get the solar panels on their houses. You don't need to maintain them because they'll maintain them. Like, imagine like you have a solar panel field, right? You have a field you've got to have someone who you pay pretty much full time to look after those solar panels. They've got to be checked periodically to make sure they're all working. They've got to be cleaned. Birds shit all over them, and you know the rain doesn't wash it off. Yeah, they've got to be looked after. The cables, I mean, if they get chewed through by an animal or something like that, you know, these things you got to think about. Whereas if people had got them in their own houses, on top of their own houses, there wouldn't be much use inside. But you know, in these houses, you know, on the roof, they look after them. Think about the maintenance you save if you had 1 million people, 1 million houses with solar panels on the roof. The amount you'll save in maintenance is just insane. And it's just passive energy. All through the day, you're generating energy through these 1 million houses around the country. We're still talking about giving out licenses to drill for oil. It's absolute madness. And they're saying, but it's our oil. It's our oil. No, we don't get a discount. And the price we pay is set by foreign dictators. It's set by Saudi Arabia. It's set by OPEC. It's not set by us. I mean, if we got a discount on our oil, maybe I might have a slight fucking argument here. Maybe if we set the prices of the most expensive commodity that we use to make energy, which is gas, like maybe if we set the price, but we don't. Qatar does. Qatar sets the prices. Saudi Arabia sets the prices. Venezuela sets the prices. Vladimir Putin sets the prices by invading his fucking neighbour. And our prices go up for petrol, our prices go up for gas, and suddenly we're paying £1,500 a year just to heat our fucking homes. Like, what is wrong with these people? Do they not understand this? And they're lied to. They're lied to by the oil fucking giants, the foreign slime companies. They're lied to by politicians who are in the pocket of the foreign slime companies. They're lied to every fucking day, and they're told it's our oil, it's your oil. They won't let us drill out our oil, and that's why the petrol prices are so high. And no. Petrol prices are going to remain high while Saudi Arabia decides what the price of your fucking oil is going to be. Because they decide it, not you. Not you. Never us. Never this country. It is the surrendering of our sovereignty that Richard Tice and Nigel Farage fucking want, even though they like to go on about sovereignty when they were talking about their Brexit scheme that they don't really discuss very much anymore because it was a massive disaster. But this really winds me up. Well, people calling up the radio going, oh, we need to drill our oil and then we'll have cheaper fucking oil. No, it doesn't work like that. I wish it did. I wish it fucking did, but it doesn't. So leave the oil in the ground, okay? Leave it under the sea where it belongs. Just leave it under the sea. It's fine. Because you know what? In 10,000 years' time, there's still going to be people on this fucking scrap of land, if it hasn't all gone underwater by then, and they're still going to need plastics. Not plastics for everything, not literally everything in everyday life, your clothes, your glasses, your hats, all being made out of plastic. No, you won't need that, okay? Your plastic bags for your shop, and you won't need a single-use plastic. You won't need that. But for some medical equipment, for certain things, we will need plastic. And yes, we can make plastic from plants, but it's not the same. It's not as strong. It's not as durable. It's not as good quality. Do you want to call it that? So yeah, we will need oil in 10,000 years' time, and nobody's talking about that. Nobody's It's all like, oh, there's oil, quick, get it, burn it, burn it, burn it. How about we leave it there, right? And in 1,000 years' time, no, even not 1,000, in 50 years' time, when no other fucker in the world has got oil because they've dug it all out the ground, they've burnt it all, right? Brazil's burnt it all, China's burnt it all, Norway has burnt it, well, sent it to other places to be burnt. Once all that's gone, think how much our oil's going to be worth, eh? Eh? Still going to need it. Still going to need it. Maybe don't burn it. Maybe just don't burn it. Smaller amounts, but fucking hell. Pound for pound's worth more than gold. Will be, 100 years' time. Keep it in the ground. Keep it in the fucking ground. Until the point where Saudi Arabia's got no fucking oil left and they can't set the price. If we're the only country in the world left with oil, then we can set the price for the oil. Happy days. There you go. So keep the capitalists happy. We're keeping the capitalists happy. Fucking psychos. Anyway. Tommy says it might be worthwhile mentioning that the most insurance companies don't cover damage to panels. Let's say like when a storm occurs. Oh, that sucks. Pete says, remember when toys brought the cost of living... remember when the Tories brought in the cost of living payments for the poor? Starmer, etc., said it wasn't enough. What do Labour do when they take power? They stop the cost of living payments. Well, at least they tried to. Joanna says, I quite easily imagine a cloud-based AGI that controls external mechanica frames for work. Sensor tech is only going to improve, so even that is not a blocker. What is that, getting the bird poop off? Hello, Graham. Would you be interested in having a conversation with me or on a stream sometime? Says Ploppy. Maybe. I don't know. Give me a shout. It's grahamdavidhughes.com. Go there, and there's a box at the bottom for sending me messages. It's got a big spam filter on, because otherwise I just get 100 messages in fucking Russian for Viagra. You have to do a little capture thing, you know. They're probably still finding thousands of those bloody plastic Funko Pop things 10,000 years buried everywhere. Yeah, it's very true. Plastic is absolutely everywhere, and the oil companies are fucking cockaloop. I did a whole show last week, didn't I, about plastic. Okay, I'm going to have to wrap up soon. Not least because there seems to be work going on outside the house. Labour revolt on migrant hotels here. After shock Epping court ruling, left-wing councils poised to defy Starmer by seeking to remove asylum seekers too. And raising a glass to your war on the middle classes, Ms. Rayner. This is from the Mail here. The Mail. They've got a shonky picture taken on a long photo lens, really bad quality, of Angela Rayner having a glass of wine and using that, because she's a working class kid, having that as something to say, oh, look at this working class person betraying their own by having a glass of wine. I know loads of working class people who drink wine quite regularly. It's something that working class people do. It's not the preserve of the middle class. But here's what they do. Here's what the Mail does. And it's so neatly encapsulated in this fucking photo, right? This is a perfect representation of what I'm talking about, right? This is setting the working class up against the middle class, right? The reality is this. The reality is it is the 93%. That is the working class and the middle class versus the multimillionaires, versus the billionaires, versus the private school mafia. Okay? We should be together with the, I'm middle class, but, I should be working with working class people. They should be working with me to topple the oligarchy that rules this country with an iron fist. But the Mail, because that's all private educated kids writing for it, what the Mail want to do is make out like the real war is working class versus middle class, when it isn't. The real war is, the real us versus them is us, normal people, versus the billionaires. The billionaires. Anyway, so I'm going to move on now. I am going to wrap up soon. Again, my brother's getting upset with me for blabbing on too much. Stop crying your heart out. Nation is struggling with Oasis blues after Epic's reunion gigs. Fans are suffering from post-Oasis blues as they mourn the emotional highs of Liam. Oh, fuck off. I can't be bothered reading that anymore. Karen Bradley's astonishing glow up, whatever. Lewinsky knocks in a twisted tail. So this is Monica Lewinsky and Amanda Knox. It's a premiere of the Twisted Tale, which they helped produce. It tells how British student Meredith Kircher was killed in Italy, and how Knox was jailed and cleared of her murder. What a weird. You told me when did that happen? About 15 years ago. You told me when that happened that Monica Lewinsky and Amanda Knox were going to team up to do a TV show. I'd be like, what is even happening right now? State has failed white working class pupils. Shit. There's something in the Daily Telegraph that I don't disagree with. That makes a change. I think that it has. I think that it absolutely has. But obviously they're putting it in there as race baiting, because they're saying, oh, but it's white kids. It's not just all working class kids. It's the white kids who are being failed to try and set. So you've got the elements coming in there, the middle class versus the time is so bright. You've got the middle class versus the working class, but then you've got the working class white people versus the working class brown black people. Great. What a great way. Divide and rule. Divide and rule, my friends. Divide and rule. And this is the Daily Telegraph doing exactly what it does. New prostate cancer examination clears way for screening. That's good news. PM is a hypocrite over jail mother. Labour councils join migrant hotel revolt. Israeli troops begin the new Gaza invasion to take over Gaza City, which is horrific. And then ministers ready to step in over steel factories. It's the third steel factory that is in trouble, which they're taking over, which refines scrap metal into new metal. Labour councils threaten new legal action over asylum seeker hotels. So even Labour councils are getting in on it. There's a terrible story in the Metro about a cult priest from the 1980s and 90s who was guilty of 17 sex crimes and is still he's still facing other charges as well. Absolutely horrific. Please don't join cults. Talking of cults, there's the Chinese military. They're all. I assume they're singing. It does look a little bit like they've just been jabbed. Like someone just come along and jabbed them. But there you go. They're singing a song. They're on the march to China to show its military might. We've got unexpected acceleration in inflation widens the gap with Eurozone peers, and Kremlin's demand for role and security guarantees dims Ukraine peace hope. I didn't have much hope in that anyway, because anything to do with Vladimir Putin or the Kremlin or Russia in general really is bound to end in a load of bullshit. It's just a load of bullshit. There you go. Anyway, so I'm going to get off now. Out of interest, anyone enjoyed Alien Earth? I just can't get into it. I enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I haven't watched the third one, which came out yesterday. I haven't watched that yet. I might watch it after the show. But I didn't like the woman who played Christy Hyde out of The Pretenders in the TV show Pistol, Danny Boyle's TV show Pistol. I didn't like her fringe. I like her. I think she's great, but I didn't like her fringe. And it's also got the lad, isn't it? Out of he was in Andor, and he was also in The End of the Fucking World, and he was also in an episode of Black Mirror, really grim one about people getting blackmailed on the internet. That was him, wasn't it? Yeah, he seemed quite good, but I thought in the first 2 episodes there was a bit of plot armor going on, so I think there's more than meets the eye to whoever he is. No spoilers, but it's I witnessed a lot of plot armor in the second episode when I thought, he shouldn't be with us anymore. He shouldn't be with us. Anyway, Alien Earth. I did enjoy the first 2 episodes. We'll see how we get on. I really, really enjoyed Fargo, the TV show based on the film. The Coen Brothers film based on a true story that was just made up. Tommy says, I've got one. Here's what we say to reform voters. What do you think of all these left-wing economic policies reform are suggesting? Are you a lefty now? Yeah. You bloody liberal. Gone all woke, have you? Is that why you're voting for a refuck? Because you got all woke? I love it. Yeah, do that. Okay, so sort of normal service will be resumed tomorrow at the ungodly hour of 9 in the morning, when I'll be back with another morning brew, and then I'll be talking to Phil at 1 o'clock at the agenda, and also at 9:30 tomorrow night we'll be doing the old Friday night social. So please join us for all those things, and until then, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the super chats. Give us a like on the way out, and hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.